We're delighted that you've taken the time to come join us. My name is Joe McCann. I'm the CEO of Inclusion Quality Mark, and we've been working with a number of schools in Dubai and Abu Dhabi over the last 12 to 18 months, and delighted with the response we've had from those schools. We attended GES in November and had a phenomenal response from schools and educationists right across the region, to the extent that our expectations are that across April and May, we will be assessing and reviewing 20 schools in the region. We still have capacity to add to that number, and we know we have a number of colleagues who are talking to us directly and saying, I think I can get everything ready for that assessment time window. But that is something we're really, really looking forward to. It's been a phenomenal experience for us and for our team to look at how far inclusion has travelled within the Middle East. And we're delighted today to welcome our three key speakers. We have Berna, Becky, and Hatim. So thank you very much for giving up your incredibly valuable time, for giving your perspective on how things work within your organizations, your schools. Delighted to have you. Please feel free to get in touch with us after this event if you have any questions or queries. At this point, I'm going to hand over to one of my executive leads for school improvement, Kevin O'Neill, who has been involved from the start in getting this organised and talking to your speakers. So at this point, Kevin, it's over to yourself. I hope you really enjoy the webinar over the next hour and take a lot of really good insights from it. Thank you very much. Kevin, over to you.
Good morning here from Ireland, and good afternoon and marhaba to all of our MENA attendees, and indeed hello to you wherever you are tuning in today. Interest in IQM, both domestically in Ireland and the UK and at international level, has really taken off in 2024, and 2025 absolutely seems to be a pivotal juncture in international inclusion and for leads as they begin to strategize, well, what next? What next and best to meet the needs of all our learners in my school? You're all very welcome here today. There is a chat function operational. It's always nice to know who is engaging with the IQM family. So if you could, into the chat, pop your details, your name and where you're tuning in from today. It's always interesting to see how far and wide our reach, and new members are always welcome into the IQM family. I am Kevin, the IQM Executive Lead for School Improvement, and previously I have been a school leader in both Ireland and England, and spent time teaching in Dubai not too many moons ago. Today's MENA webinar is next level engagement for all of us at the Inclusion Quality Mark. We truly are now a global school improvement partner, and it's fantastic to see the IQM family now operating at all four corners of the globe. As Joe has already alluded to, we have a superb panel in attendance here today. Respected global voices in inclusive education and collaborative partners of ourselves at IQM. Hatem Mahmood is Director of Education at the Advanced Learning Community in Saudi Arabia. Becky Hayward, Head of Inclusion and Senko at King's Dubai, my alma mater, a school I taught in once upon a time, and also an IQM Centre of Excellence for Inclusion. And Becky will be able to speak of first-hand experience as to what it means for a school to go through the IQM process. And Berna Barr, Corporate Head of Inclusion at GEMS Education. You'll hear their insights and the direction of travel regarding inclusion and belonging in MENA schools, and how IQM have together helped enable them to better validate existing practices and are helping shape visionary schools and the future of them in MENA, and helping them to meet the needs of all of their learners. Before we come to our guests, so I'll just give a short overview of the format today and a little bit about the award. So in this webinar, we will cover what the Inclusive International Schools Award is and what we do at IQM. how we advocate, support and quality assure schools, building inclusive cultures that are sustainable, that are contextual and create cultures of belonging that will enable all of your learners and stakeholders to thrive under one roof. The panel will offer an international and dimension in both the UAE and in Saudi in particular. And again, we'll touch upon our work as global school improvement partners. So why become an IQM school? Why is interest so significant and tangible at this point in time? Well, within our schools all around the world, diversity is a fact. And it would be remiss of us as school leaders and practitioners at all levels to oversee this, to not pay it its due respect. Diversity within the classroom, within the school community is a fact, and it's something we need to embrace. Therefore, it is our job, what we are tasked with, is chasing down levels of inequity that we find within our organizations. As school leaders, we use evidence-informed practice, we use data assessment, and we use the resources at our disposal to identify inequity and chase it down. Inclusion, viewed as a verb, is everyone's responsibility. We are asking schools to raise the inclusion agenda within up to that of safeguarding levels. We are all responsible, we're all involved. It is your daily, medium, and long-term strategic goals that allow for that to happen. If as an inspector I visit a school and I ask to speak to the inclusion lead, well, everyone is responsible. Each and every person has a role and remit to drive that inclusion agenda forward. Inclusion is the action. And that's the mindset, the shift. We're trying to move away from heavy lifters. It's well and good schools having inclusion leads or SENCOs, but everyone within the school needs to feel that sense of belonging. We're moving our schools forward. That is the actions that we take. That is our strategic actions that create a culture of belonging. And when we have belonging, we have value added. We have people hitting their milestones, discretionary effort, psychological safety. And that is a school. That is the schools of tomorrow, folks. A school where everyone feels that sense of belonging. And indeed, maybe just as we prepare for this webinar, for those present, it's an activity for you to now picture your own school. And you'll hear Hatem, Berna and Becky talk about what they have done and what their vision and plans are for inclusion across MENA schools. But for everyone present, we are looking to help you establish where inequity exists within your schools, within your classrooms, to celebrate your very best inclusive practice, to ring fence it, to quality assure it, and then to nudge and nurtle and guide you towards creating a culture of belonging. Inclusion is that verb. So taking a look at this Venn diagram, this sketch, that's your school, ladies and gentlemen, in February 2025. Every school has got a culture of belonging already. But what we want to do is nurture it and grow it. We want to identify the members within your school that are sitting on the margins of that culture of belonging, that are not quite achieving everything they can do. Is it boys versus girls in certain year groups? Do certain aspects of the curriculum lend itself to a greater sense of belonging and ownership? Parental engagement, curriculum, assessment, disadvantage. These are issues that we are tasked with as school leaders, and that IQM have that insight track and knowledge to best support your school, growing your centre of belonging. I will caveat this and say that in the 20 years of IQM, we have never met a single school that have a concentric circle. There's never been that school where everyone all of the time across the full academic year belongs. But the highest performing schools have inclusion as their key aspect of school improvement. They have got the framework and the conditions that allow for IEPs and EHCPs to be met. KPIs such as attendance, behaviour, achievement, because the whole school is aligned to what inclusion values are and should look like, then school improvement can take place. Inclusion cannot happen in isolation, and it must be the golden thread. So you will hear people talk today about how they strategically are growing their centre of belonging. This is a fluid model, folks. Inclusion must be at the forefront of schools' thinking. So when schools register to work with IQM, we ask them to take a deep dive into inclusion in their school. These are the 8 key aspects of whole school improvement that we ask schools to look at and engage with. We have an international framework of standards where schools will pitch their practices, their policies, and their pedagogies against these 8 elements. These 8 elements cover whole school improvement. Elements 1 and 2 are very strategic by design. They allow senior leaders and inclusion leads to determine exactly right now where is inclusion explicitly understood at every level: pupil voice, classroom, CPD, leadership, parental engagement, and governance. And where can we take that? Where can we address issues like inconsistency of inclusion and heavy lifting? How do we coach and influence this at a leadership level to grow a school that has a tangible ethos of inclusion? Ethos is that Greek word for character. So how does inclusion and your ethos define your school as the backbone? Elements 3 to 8, that's where we work with you to engage stakeholders on. We want as many people to own the inclusion agenda and direction in your school as possible. We want it to influence thinking, classroom pedagogy, curriculum leadership. How can you, as a mathematics lead in your school, make sure that your subject allows for every mathematician in the school to succeed and thrive, even those that maybe actively dislike your subject? How can you work much closer with the inclusion team that has joined up thinking, the development of middle leaders in the school, and the concept of inclusion and belonging? Schools will review their practices against our 8 elements, and then IQM will visit the school. And in the Middle East, we will be visiting schools, as Joe has mentioned at the start, in April and May of 2025. We'll be assessing 18 new schools and reviewing 2 schools. There's still a chance, if your school is registered with IQM and you would like to be assessed within this academic year, within the UAE, for you to get in contact and to pick a date with us. We'd like the dates all in the diary by Valentine's Day, February the 14th. We will again be in the UAE and the Middle East in November of this year, assessing a new wave of schools that are right now beginning their IQM journey and preparing themselves, quality assuring themselves. We'll also be attending the MENA exhibit, the MENA conference in Dubai at the end of April, and we'll be exhibiting at GES in Saudi Arabia. The 8 elements there are our pillars, they're fundamentals, and they help schools become strategic in their inclusion journey. The aspect of what you'll hear today is how we ask schools to distribute leadership. We want inclusion to be sustainable. We want the agenda owned and correctly defined. What is effective inclusion and what is not? What is holistic inclusive leadership? And where you can take that. It should become the golden thread of school improvement in your organizations. Here's the last slide I'll touch upon. This is our model for school improvement. We are big advocates of psychological safety, having motivated stakeholders and learners at every level in the school. A strong pupil voice where everyone in the classroom, every diverse learner within the school feels that they are in the learning zone, they're being challenged. Every staff member feels a sense of belonging. They too are respected and valued, and the well-being agenda is well catered for. They can build a lasting career within your organization. Strong aspects of parental engagement. They're the partners in the learning of the children. How do we reach beyond the existing choir? How do we better engage our parents? And strategic oversight that we will have as many people in that learning zone at one point as is possible. Based in Saudi Arabia, Hatem has performed multiple roles within the IB organization since 2015. He's a curriculum reviewer, a school evaluation leader, and a regional workshop leader. Hatem developed a passion and a skill towards curriculum design and is currently certified as a concept-based inquiry Erickson and Lanning consultant. He has been in school operations and pedagogical leadership for more than a decade and currently leads education at the advanced learning community in Saudi Arabia. Hatem believes the school's ecosystem as a learning organization is built upon the coherent interconnection between students, learning, professional learning, and system learning. Hatem is an advocate for personal and professional growth, inclusion, and education for sustainable development. Marhaba, Hatem. It's lovely to have you here with us today. Your extensive bio there has left me breathless. But important, we do let those present know of your bio. We know that there are a few more passionate voices within Middle Eastern education than yourself regarding inclusion and belonging. So perhaps you could open up today's panel proceedings by telling us a little bit about your role at ALC and as an IB inspector, and indeed give us some insight into your inclusion vision for all the schools and learners in your network.
Thanks, Kevin. I deeply appreciate the opportunity that has been given to me to share some insights in this wonderful congregation of avid educators like yourself and the colleagues in the audience. Honestly, the essence of my work and what I do and what I stand for at Advanced Learning Communities has started multiple years ago when I used to be an inclusion coordinator, and even before that when I just used to be a teacher trying to do his job in the most efficient way. And when I started learning about how the brain works and how learning happens rather than how just teaching can be done, this really created a paradigm shift for me. This was my first aha moment. And I always say, how dare I step a foot in the classroom dealing with different brains in front of me without knowing how their brain work and how my brain work, and without perceiving how the learning will happen and how the intake of the information that I'm providing as a teacher will take place in a different way. So basically what we call differentiation, in other words. So this was the first aha moment. Then as an inclusion coordinator in one of the schools I worked here in Saudi Arabia, and I've worked in 5 schools all over Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and I've visited more than 20 schools with the IB evaluation team for school evaluation, which we do not like to call inspection because it's a different thing. And I'm sure we all agree on that. But it was a really short story, yet a very sad story as well. And because I had a quick discussion with one of our teachers, he was actually head of department as well, and on a specific student with behavioral issues and challenges, and he was diagnosed, the student, as an ADHD student. And I was, of course, as an inclusion coordinator, doing my job, trying to reach out to the teachers and trying to let them know how to reach the student to be able to teach the student. And that teacher told me one sentence that I cannot get out of my mind up until this moment, and it was, "I want this child outside of my class." So this statement was a blow away statement in terms of what does it take for a teacher to say a statement like that? Where is the issue? What are we doing wrong? Of course, he is a well-qualified teacher. He has taken his training. But again, as a school, as administration, as a whole community, where do we stand in terms of raising awareness for our teachers so that they are able to create the environment, we together are able to create the environment that is conducive to learning and that is conducive to making everyone in the classroom, let aside the people with specific learning needs or additional learning support requirements, to reach their highest potential. We are definitely doing something wrong. And since then, again, to the essence of what I do currently in the company, I've always was aspiring and longing for the moment that comes when I step a foot outside of school operations, while I was trying to push school to where they have to be in terms of inclusive practices, to where I can now hopefully pull the schools where they need to be. So it's always a push and pull situation. And you've highlighted my work with the IB, and the IB organization is one of the most aligned accrediting bodies when it comes to inclusion. They have a huge, extensive inclusion policy that, of course, we align all the schools that believe in the inclusive practices to build up their own contextual inclusive policy, built upon the beliefs of connection before correction, built upon the belief that, even the UNESCO last year were all about all means all. So we understand that, of course, there are many liabilities in terms of being able to do that. You have mentioned in your opening speech in terms of it can't be 100% all of the time, 100% all of the students, 100% all of the teachers, but it is a journey. And we understand, of course, the great Finnish slogan of education in terms of less is more. When you have less students, this means more differentiation. When you have less work, this means more focus. But not every single school can do that. You have public education, you have private education, you have different set of standards that you align with. So again, our work here is basically focused on creating a teacher training program that we have partnered with IFIP, International Forum of Inclusion Practitioners, Daniel Sobel, to Arabize and to work on not only translating it, but contextualizing it so that we make it accessible, reachable for all public educators, the Arabic-only speakers in the Arab world. Because one of the challenges that we face, and of course we face all of our solutions based on the research that has been done, evidence-based, identifying where the problems are. So OECD has created a special report for education in Saudi Arabia back in 2020 that have identified 4 key areas of challenges. And of course, the second was strengthening the quality of teaching profession. And the fourth was strengthening the foundation for learning. So these 2 items are basically based on the need to provide more teacher training and more teacher programs that provide accessibility and an inclusion for all.
Okay. And Tim, with that in mind, you've mentioned there about a journey, and even that former colleague of yours as well, obviously the journey and the shift that he has gone on, and Saudi schools are all moving on. How would you see that IQM and our approach, our supportive work that we would do, could benefit schools in Saudi Arabia with their visionary work and on this journey? How could we help create a sustainable pathway for all schools and learners to create that culture of belonging?
That is a great question, Kevin. And to be honest with you, we need to set ourselves in an approach that normalizes inclusion. I mean, yes, we are all advocates for inclusion practices, but and yes, we are speaking here about the IQM and the 8 elements that really can create an environment that is supporting inclusion and inclusive practices in any school out there. But at the end of the day, I think as a community, we are here to support the values. We are here to support inclusion as an action, not just as a stamp or as a logo that can be added to your school website or school profile. And this needs a lot of work. And I believe that IQM is spearheading this work in terms of creating awareness for caregivers, for parents, guardians, and the alignment between the elements and also the behavioral management in schools. So it's not only about academics, because at the end of the day, you can only do so much in terms of providing the additional support academically within each and every student's individual capabilities and capacities. But again, it is to maintain the understanding of creating this psychological safety of psychological safe environment in the classroom for all teachers to follow through, allowing students to grow through their journey, not only go through their journey. So I believe that IQM is spearheading this in terms of allowing this opportunity for more and more schools to join this initiative and this calling, I would say.
Thanks very much. Without a doubt, I think your attendance here has definitely helped perk the interest of a lot of Saudi schools that are interested in listening and learning a little bit more about what IQM is and getting themselves making forward momentum on their inclusion journey. I know you're a very busy man. The last month you've been inspecting schools in South Africa and attending a conference in London. So you found the time in your diary to join us today, and thank you very much. Please stay with us for the remainder of the webinar. Indeed, thank you very much for your contribution. Our second guest today, Becky Hayward. She's the head of inclusion and SENCO at King's School Dubai. King's School Dubai, like I already mentioned, is a centre of excellence for inclusion, and indeed spearheaded the movement into the UAE last year. The Centres of Excellence for Inclusion, you can actually see just behind me there, the purple shield. I'm sure that sits proudly within the school and was well earned. Becky herself graduated in education in 2006 and began her teaching career in Bristol. Throughout her career, she has taught from year 1 right the way through to year 6 and has a fantastic understanding of how primary school children learn. In 2019, Becky moved to Dubai to join the King's family, where she has taken on the role of inclusion leader and SENCO. She's committed to fostering inclusivity, and Becky models best practices and empowers educators, significantly enhancing student success and educational experiences. Becky, you're very welcome here today, and yours was one of the first 2 schools in the UAE to achieve the Inclusive International School Award with IQM. Considering the interest that has been shown in the UAE since then, you and the team at King's must be very proud to have been pioneers on this front.
Absolutely, yes.
Firstly, could you explain to everyone your own school vision at King's for inclusion and your rationale as to why you and the team undertook the school improvement journey with IQM?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm at King's Dubai, so I'm one of the 3 King's schools, and each King's school has a very different cohort. We are the only primary school in the group, and we have a range of different children from about 76 different nationalities, which has developed over time. When I started at King's in 2019, like Kevin said, it was when the new KHJ framework for inclusion had come in. And prior to that, we were quite an exclusive school. So we were quite selective with the children that we took in. And at that time, we only had about 42 children on our Wave 3 register. So our most needy children, our highest need children. And then from sort of 2019, that grew massively. Our cohort of children really changed. And now we've got over 130 Wave 3 children on our register. So in terms of managing that and changing over time, we had to really adapt the way that inclusion ran throughout the school. I'm very lucky to have an extremely skilled team, and we did go from very good to outstanding, which we're extremely proud of within our inclusion department. And I think we got to the point where we are maintaining that inclusion, the outstanding grading, and at the point we just wanted to really get a wider understanding of how our inclusion was being delivered across our school, have that external eye and a bit of a critical friend on inclusion, and really have a deep dive into what was kind of happening across the school, and that's kind of why we went for the IQM, to have that external view on that as well.
An external view indeed, because the assessment itself over 2 days was comprehensive. Every nook and cranny in the school and every advancement was acknowledged and probed. And you know, the feedback we're receiving from schools is it sets them up to be a lot more strategic and stronger, and it's a very unifying factor for a school to be quality assured by IQM. As your dive into inclusion became deeper over time at King's, do you feel that inclusion was becoming more explicitly owned and understood by people beyond the inclusion team within King's, and adding value to the organisation and its culture?
Yeah, absolutely. We found the whole process hugely beneficial. We really saw a real lens on inclusion across the whole school. At the start of the process, we actually reviewed inclusion. We did our own sort of review within the school, when we went down to the levels all the way down to the teachers, to the maintenance team, to the PLT, the children, the parents, and had a real kind of in-depth look at people's views, their even better ifs, what they thought was working well. And that kind of then developed on to lead us through our action plan, which really did become a bit of an integral part of our school improvement plan. For that sort of year, it really fed into our school improvement plan and helped us to really understand sort of the way in which inclusion was going to go. It really meant that inclusion was at the forefront of everything that everybody did, kind of through that evaluation process, and it really promoted inclusion as well. And I think it promoted it to the extent where it was everybody's responsibility. Yes, we have a really big inclusion team, but it really highlighted how it needed to be a culture to run throughout the whole school, and how it was everyone's responsibility. We always say every teacher is a teacher of 7 children, and everybody really stepped up to that. Through the process as well, it really increased interest in inclusion. We developed a working party to meet one of the IQM statements, and that really led to upskilling of the team. So we really looked, the working party looked at where our skill sets were, where did we need improvement. They got out and spoke to teachers, they got into classes, they reviewed things. It grew interest in teachers becoming inclusion teachers, as well as anything else, which was amazing. It really critically analysed the provision that we had. It shared good practice and really sort of highlighted the pockets of inspiring practice as well. And then I guess like parents as well, in terms of other stakeholders, we did do a lot of work with our parents around that. We surveyed them as well, which was possibly quite brave of us. We were quite proud of what we did in the end, but what it really did was highlight the relationship that we have with our parents and showed their satisfaction, and that was kind of through one of the IQM review points, and we looked at how well we kind of manage that delicate relationship. So it really has led us to make some really positive changes, but also shown how that inclusion runs throughout the whole school.
Brilliant. You've talked about how it's been an inspiration within the organisation. Your trailblazers, people have looked at that, they have seen the work and the value that it's added to an already high performing school, and the interest across the UAE speaks for itself. Becky, as a centre of excellence, you were awarded Dexter Burr. Dexter Burr is the IQM mascot. I'm just wondering how he is settling into life in the UAE. He once had a coat and a hat when he lived in Claudy in Ireland, but now he lives in Dubai, in much warmer climes. How is he settling in?
Yeah, he's having a great time. He's been very busy. One of the things that we did introduce after through one of the IQM action points was that we had an inclusion party of children. So I did give Dexter Burr to them to start with. He's been working with them around kind of looking at what's been going on. He's been sat out on friendship benches, but his current role is that he's helping a little girl in year 1 as a transitional object. He was in the classroom, the teacher's classroom, and she sort of fell in love with him. So now he's helping her come to school. So being fully inclusive himself.
Brilliant. It's great to hear he's working his magic. He's well loved and well travelled, and he's obviously adaptable in sunnier climes as he is in cold Irish winters. And it's lovely to hear actually his relationship clearly with one of the children and what he is working with her on. Excellent. Becky, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you or meeting with the King's team later this year when we come to review you as a Centre of Excellence. Our third and final panelist today, but no means least, Berna Barr. Berna is a highly qualified educational leader and educational psychologist. She began her career as a primary school teacher in South Africa, specialising in mathematics and ELL, and has since worked in a range of environments. She's been head of prep at Sharpeville School, as well as head of inclusion, DSL, and pastoral deputy head in her career. Berna recently returned to the UAE as corporate head of inclusion for GEMS Education, where she is overseeing the development and implementation of comprehensive inclusion strategies and initiatives across their extensive network of schools. Berna is one of the most passionate people I've came across in terms of inclusion and in cultivating cultures of inclusion and excellence, not only in GEM schools, but she's known for sharing her expertise across the region and helping and supporting colleagues. Berna, it's a pleasure to have you here today and to catch up with you again. We know how busy you are, so I mean, how active your diary is, do you or does James ever sit on your laurels? You always seem to be here, there, or everywhere.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me. Thanks. Hi, Joe, Elish. I see the team there. Rebecca, Becky, loved your speech. Hatton, great to see you again. Kevin, in short, there's no rest for the wicked, and we are always trying to do what we do better. We currently have 48 schools in the Middle East, and then looking at some other opportunities as well. We also have that group of schools in the UK that is managed by the Bellevue Group. And in short, inclusion is who we are. It's not something we do. And therefore, I honestly believe that inclusion means that it's not about Jains or about Kings or about Saudi or about Qatar. It's about every single child that comes through the door, every single person that is in our schools. We currently have just over 142,000 children on our books. But it's not just about that. It's about everybody that works with a child or everybody that interacts with somebody else. And I had a conversation this morning with one of our schools who are actively busy with their IQM. And one of the things that they've done is change the focus from SEND to inclusion. Now in the UAE, we are very, very lucky that we have inclusion as a big focus. But inclusion means more than just our children who are struggling to access or behave or struggling to learn. So I think the scope has grown so much bigger.
Quite a vast network and a number of children, and lovely to hear that one of the schools that we're working with is grasping that cultural shift and aspect shift of moving away from SEND to inclusion for all. And that's a big part of what we will be assessing. And it leads me on perfectly to the next question. James, the very first wave of James schools, 10 schools will be assessed by IQM in April and in May of this year. Schools that are in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah and Al Ain. Becky has shared with us already school improvement and the journey undertaken by her school as part of the process. Could you perhaps share both your experience directing this change across your schools and the feedback you've received from your colleagues? You've touched upon one school there, but their experiences and yours about working with the IQM team and how it's upskilling staff ahead of their assessment.
I think the biggest thing for me personally was the fact that when I reached out to the IQM and we started talking about how are we going to do this, I mean, 48 schools are a lot of schools to do. The fact that the IQM was so flexible. When we started talking about what this journey would look like, because obviously with our schools we have different price points, we have different curriculums, just about 198 different languages spoken in our schools. So the variety of what we have and what we are dealing with is huge. And the fact that the IQM, at every point where I raised something or asked about something, you guys came into the party and met us where we were at. And I think for our schools, the 10 schools are currently on the journey, and then the other 2 who's registered and started looking at it. We've got another wave of about 9 schools who are looking at doing November assessment. The fact that the IQM assessors are so involved in every single head of inclusion's journey, in every single SER that's been submitted, you know, the conversations that's been going on, and obviously I get high level feedback from other parties as well. And in the schools, they are absolutely crazy about the fact that they can pick up the phone, they can send a WhatsApp, and somebody will respond and support them. And I think the other bit of it also is the fact that we are not looking at this is the standard globally. We are looking at where are you as a school, where are you as a team, where are you as a centre, and how do we bring you to the next phase? Yeah. It's quite uncommon for schools to be so open and honest, and I know I haven't seen all of the submissions yet, but I know that schools have been prompted to be open and honest, because hiding things that's going on or you know, making things up is not going to work. And this is why I love the IQM as well. And I had many conversations with Joe about the fact that it's so robust. If I see a school has the IQM, I know that inclusion is alive and well in that school. You know, there's many other awards that you can do. There's many other quality marks you can do. There's the world is full of stamps. But as Hatem said, it's not just about having another thing on your website. It's not just having another thing on your email address. I mean, we've all seen these emails, especially in the UAE, where the school has like 57 things at the bottom of their signatures.
Yeah.
This is about sustainable, intentional change. And I think as a group, as GEMS Education, we are very passionate as a group about inclusion, and also about making sure that every person belongs, because it's not just about the children.
Brilliant, and it's great to hear the feedback from your schools of what they're getting. I must say, as the IQM leads in the school, we are really enjoying supporting your schools and championing them. And I can see and feel the relationships and the trust and the transparency between IQM and the schools developing week on week. They know that we are supportive partners. They know that we are helping and nudging them forward. And I think the trust levels and the relationships are very strong. And you can see the growth mindset really taking shape. The new leaders of tomorrow, it's sustainable. And the passion and the motivation for each leader in the school to succeed. The inclusion leads, it's tangible. And I know that from our end, we're all looking forward to visiting and assessing the schools come April and May, and indeed the next wave of schools, preparing them for their November assessment. What would be the consensus then within GEMS? How so far it's already allowing for validation of practice, confidence building of inclusion leads. It's a lonely job. It's a high profile and responsible job. But I think what is the consensus, the early feedback mid-process before assessment about the quality assurance that they're already receiving?
I think it's quite interesting that all of the schools have feedback. So we do these check-ins after each of the processes. No matter what we do in GEMS, we always have this standard that we check and get feedback from all parties involved. And it's quite interesting that the common thread in all of that is they're making us look at things we didn't know to look at. And I think, Becky, if you can agree and tell me if I'm mistaken, but it's actually that wider view, that holistic idea about how this works. But it's all done, as you said, with empathy and with respect and those things. So the feedback at the moment is I've got a few schools who are upset they couldn't be part of the first wave, and also not on my list for the second wave. So we would love all of our GEMS schools, including our Egypt schools. And I'm just going to shout out to Hoda. Hi, Hoda. To our Egypt schools as well, our Qatari schools, the schools we manage and oversee in Saudi and England. I'd love all our schools to do the IQM. It's a 3-year project in GEMS, and I just honestly could not be happier with the feedback that we've received so far.
Super. Thank you very much for that. We're enjoying working with the GEMS schools and watching them grow and receive the credit that they deserve. So there's some fantastic pioneering work taking place there, and it's being very well led. It doesn't happen by osmosis. With the IQM International Award, or the Domestic Award, it's a vehicle to drive the inclusion agenda forward in your school. It's rigorous and it's robust. We will help you see the wood for the trees. We will quality assure your strongest existing practice, while also opening your eyes at a holistic level to what can be done within your context. We don't barge into any school and tell them exactly how it should be done or give them the utopian model. We work with schools. We understand their context and their parameters and their child-centered approach. The inclusive framework allows for schools to have constructive conversations internally. What's working well for us right now, and where can we find marginal gains, chasing down inequity and enhancements? Which colleagues or parents or children can we bring deeper into this conversation? It's a self-auditing tool, and it helps you identify what you're doing well and your areas for further development. It becomes strategic support. There are centres of excellence. Becky's school is one, and indeed I hope to hear some GEMS schools in the near future also becoming centres of excellence. For those of you that are tuning in Ireland or in England, there's a number of centres of excellence and flagship schools in your locales. There's 6,500 schools around the world that IQM work with. Centres of excellence have been quality assured, and they have a sustainable model, a high capacity to sustain improvement. Look them up, look at our website, request an info pack, and we'll involve you in the conversation. IQM as School Improvement Partners will support you in shaping your response to your unique challenges. We go cross-border and cross-system. We promote effective teaching and learning that leads to outstanding progress for all learners. And that's a key message today. This is for all learners. Inclusion is for all learners and all stakeholders. This is not an SEN only award. It's for everyone. It's about creating the environment where all learners can thrive. There's rigorous self-evaluation involved, and it promotes the most positive aspects of school development. And indeed, you've heard from a few people, there's quite a consensus from schools that one of the spin-off wins is it's helped them be prepared for inspections in their own domiciles themselves. Without a doubt, they felt their agenda, their antenna is that little bit sharper. We work in primary, secondary, independent, private, special, nursery, all through. We have specialists that can meet and cater for your needs. Together, though, and that's the key aspect, is together, we are school improvement partners. You're not isolated, you're not left on your own. There's a school improvement work and a relationship between IQM and the schools. We will support your school to meet the emotional well-being needs of all your learners and staff and build your capacity to deliver outstanding provision in your inclusive setting. We'll now take some questions either that have been sent in advance of the webinar or maybe have came to and sparked the attention of some of the members who are here present. I'll also take this opportunity to say those that are present here, you can request an info pack from the IQM website. The link is there and it will soon be put into the chat for you all to have a look and receive the international registration pack. At that, I'm going to ask Sarah, who's supporting me, to maybe field some of the questions that I in turn can pass on to our esteemed panelists today. Do you feel that leadership teams owning and articulating the inclusion agenda better with IQM, that they will be better set professionally to own and influence others regarding inclusive practices and pedagogies and performance? Hatem, I'll ask you to field this one. From a leadership perspective, do you think that IQM will support leaderships in developing an inclusive style that will allow for the agenda to be better owned within the school?
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, if you go through the 8 elements of IQM, I believe they cover all the essential elements of building a culture. And, you know, the father of modern management, Peter Drucker, says culture eats strategy for breakfast. So whatever you put of strategies and standards and alignments, if they do not align and if they do not help leaders create the culture that they are primarily the first responsibles of in any organization, then by all means, any accreditation or any paperwork will not be fully supportive to do that. And as we know, people always come before paper. So I believe leader responsibility is, first of all, to create the urgency, the feel of urgency to change, because there is a problem that we are trying to solve here. And the problem is that not all teachers are well equipped with what it takes to meet all students' learning diversity inside the classroom. And again, this responsibility lies on the leaders. So I believe, yes, IQM provides those elements on a silver plate for school leaders and learning organizations.
Super. Thank you very much. A big part of our work will be developing that inclusive leadership tone within the school. Any more questions there, Sarah? In terms of workload, how do you ensure that there was buy-in from all of your team? And what does the inclusion buy-in look like today now that your school, this must be for yourself, Becky. In terms of the workload, the 8 elements is often a question we're asked with IQM. As a former head teacher, if I was asked to undertake all 8 elements, I would balk at the task. And yet I think that the smart and strategic schools are looking beyond that. They are using all members to engage in the workload, but I'd be keen to hear what you did at King's.
Yeah, so we kind of spread it out through our performance management. So I'm extremely lucky to have a team of 4 teachers and 17 LSAs, all of whom are extremely keen to showcase what the school does, show it off, but also improve their practice in the school all at any one time. So we actually wove it in through all of their performance management targets. They were looking at different elements each based on what they felt they'd like to improve on. And that's actually been really, really beneficial to upskill them, but also to help with the workload of gathering the evidence and having things ready when we had our review. And in terms of now, we have been looking as a team at kind of what's next and steps are moving forward, ready for the review in May time, I think it is. And it's just kind of been culture school, like I said earlier, which is part of what we do, and we are self-improving all the time, and I think that's how we've progressed forward in terms of kind of keeping it ticking over throughout the year.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And it's true, I think the schools that plan for the workload and share it get more than a paper exercise. They actually grow understanding of inclusion, and it makes, that's one of the things that makes it sustainable, is involving people in the conversation. And very few schools have done it better than King's. Absolutely, a centre of excellence on merit.
One of the other things, sorry Kevin, I should say one of the other things that we also did was we looked sort of for this year for our next step for our action plan, because our inclusion culture is changing constantly and we're always having to adapt the practice that we have. A lot of our action points have come from things that we're experiencing now, so we kind of led it through our action plans for our school development plan as well.
Brilliant, and that's exactly, again, an IQM assessor would like to see how inclusion is now impacting upon future plans in your school development plan. First class, you're giving away all the top secrets there. Well received. Listen, Becky, thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question, Sarah. I'm sure there was more on that, but if there's one more we can get in. Bernard, I will turn to you. I'd mentioned the start about 2025 and the direction of travel regarding inclusion. It's never been more a priority for schools. So where do you see the global conversation of inclusion in schools moving as 2025 develops?
Thanks, Kevin. I think it's a big question because I can only actually speak from where I sit and where I see things. But I think a lot of talk is going on about the quality of inclusion and not just access, and not just they've got an IEP, there we go, that's enough. I think the inclusion piece has evolved in such a way that we've moved from a growth mindset to a benefit mindset. So how does my growth benefit everyone? How do we work together as a unit? That ecosystem that Hudson was referring to earlier. And if you read what's going on in terms of research and where the latest things are happening in inclusion, a lot of it is about how do we work collectively in a hive mindset and share good practice regardless of borders, languages, and disabilities. How do we make sure that every person gets exactly what they need while adding to the inclusion piece and adding value? And a big thing here in the UAE, for instance, is vocational training, alternative pathways, what's next, because we're in many of our schools, we are very, very good at supporting children at school level, and then there's nothing else following. So that's a big piece that we're currently working on. But on a global scale, that's the same questions that they're asking in England. It's the same questions they're asking in the US or in South Africa. And I think we need to start removing the boundaries between countries and between inclusive practice, and actually look at how can we each learn from each other, because none of us can do this job on our own.
How can we each learn from each other? That is, I suppose, what IQM family stands for. It's working together, it's sharing best practice, it's collaboration, and it's a child-centered organisation, and it's lovely working with inclusion leads that are as equally child-centered and driven and passionate. Becky, Hatem and Berna, thank you very much for your time today. To everyone that made the webinar or will be tuning in afterwards when the recording is set out, you're all very welcome. Anyone who would like to find out more about IQM, whether it's domestic IQM, Ireland, or in the UK or international, please do just request an info pack from our website, or drop me an email to kevin@iqmaward.com or admin@iqmaward.com. Once again, thank you all very much and look forward to speaking to you all again in the near future. Take care.